Space and Time's a blockchain for ZK-proven data, cryptographically verified data. It allows DeFi developers to build very complicated smart contracts that require a lot of data or ask a lot of complicated questions about activity on their own chain.
GM, and welcome to this week's episode of BlockHunters Voices. My name is Joachim Vuju, and I'm your host for today. BlockHunters Voices is a platform where we explore the journeys, stories, and insights of blockchain innovators and leaders, as well as the technologies driving their projects. Today, we are diving deep into the fascinating world of blockchain and decentralized data with none other than Scott Dykstra, the CTO and co-founder of Space and Time. In this episode, we'll explore Scott's journey, the core innovations behind Space and Time, the challenges and opportunities in the rapidly evolving blockchain ecosystem. Welcome, Scott. Great to have you here, my friend.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks. So, Scott, you've had an interesting path from leading cloud solutions at Teradata to co-founding Space and Time. Could you share what drove your transition into Web3 and what inspired you to build in this space?
Yeah, I was looking at smart contracts during COVID. I'd obviously been investing in crypto and interested in crypto for a long time prior, but I really didn't know much about blockchain technology. I just knew crypto was interesting. Then around COVID, I had a lot of free time to explore smart contracts more. And I was fascinated with DeFi. This is around DeFi summer era. Aave, popular, Uniswap, good times, right? I pray for good times like that again. And then I was just fascinated by smart contracts conceptually. And my co-founder, Nate, who at the time was a colleague, just another coworker, took me to dinner and was like, dude, we gotta build in the Web3 space. There's something really interesting going on with Ethereum, with smart contracts. This is where we need to be. And surprisingly, there's no good data solutions. Remember, this is 2020 and the infrastructure was pretty immature, right? 4 years ago, definitely a step down in infrastructure immaturity compared to where we are today. And he's like, surprisingly, there's not any very mature data solutions. There's not very mature databases. There's not very mature indexers. There's not a really mature data market in this space, and we should go build. So then that was kind of the beginning of us thinking through what would a crypto native database look like.
Sounds good. Let's dive in a little into the concept of space and time. For those who might not be familiar, can you explain space and time in simple terms, and how does it fit into the larger blockchain ecosystem, and what problems does it solve?
Yeah, absolutely. Space and Time's a blockchain for ZK-proven data, for cryptographically verified data. We index data from every major chain, and we serve complex queries, or we answer questions for smart contracts all around the ecosystem. It allows DeFi developers to build very complicated smart contracts that require a lot of data or ask a lot of complicated questions about activity on their own chain. For those that aren't familiar with the ZK coprocessor space, it's really like a compute engine that sits next to a smart contract that provides data to the smart contract and proves that it computed that data correctly. We're proving that we looked up an answer correctly for a smart contract.
And what are the core products and services that Space and Time provides, and how do they benefit the end user?
Mm-hmm. So we allow DeFi developers, almost analogous to an Oracle network, we allow DeFi developers to access data that they can't access on-chain already. Right now, DeFi is being built with sort of one arm tied behind developers' back because they have no access to any data at all. And when they do need to access data, they access it pretty centralized or from trusted systems. So for the end user, Space and Time really provides more security, and it allows DeFi developers to build these much more sophisticated DeFi systems, really ushering in the next wave of DeFi. The next wave of DeFi, the next generation of DeFi will be data-driven with much more rich experiences where end users can get, discounts for loyalty or discounts for, like when taking out a loan, getting a better borrow rate because you've already paid off loans on chain, and having that smart contract from the lending protocol look up your wallet history to see if you've already paid off loans on chain, you get a better borrow rate. Giving data to smart contracts is actually giving opportunities to end users to get rewarded for what they do on chain.
But can you explain how exactly do you decentralize this data?
Mm-hmm. So Space and Time is a permissionless network, a permissionless blockchain of nodes that are indexing data from other blockchains, witnessing that data, signing it, storing it, coming to consensus on it. And then we serve that data through our ZK prover. We spent 3 years custom building a new SQL query engine, a new way to serve data that's ZK proven, where we're proving that the execution of the queries are done correctly, the way we create those answers has been done correctly, and that the data itself has not been tampered or manipulated or changed in any way.
You have mentioned a lot the term zero knowledge. Can you explain in simple terms how these ZK proofs play a role in ensuring data privacy and transparency, and overall what zero knowledge is? Because it's a very popular term right now, but I'm not sure everybody understands it right now.
Yeah, most people have zero knowledge.
Exactly.
It's a way to mathematically prove that something was done correctly. Kind of the holy grail of using math to verify things. It's verifying computations. So a zero knowledge proof is building a big mathematical, often really a set of polynomials that prove that a certain computation was done correctly. The background of ZK proofs is that they came up with rollups. Like the popularization of this term and of this technology in the crypto space was initiated by L2s rolling up to Ethereum and wanting to prove to Ethereum that they're not lying about their transaction ledger. They're not lying about the smart contracts that they've executed and the transactions they've done and the balances they've created on their chain. When they sort of checkpoint that up with Ethereum, or settle on Ethereum, or roll up to Ethereum, they want to prove to Ethereum that the ledger they're checkpointing hasn't been tampered. And so some really smart folks thought of some crazy mathematical ways to do that.
But if you want to run these mathematical proofs, you need very big computational power, right?
Yeah, they generally run on GPUs. You don't have to run them on GPUs. Plenty of teams running on CPUs, but it's generally preferable to use often NVIDIA GPUs to accelerate, since there's so much math to be done. It's almost like we use GPUs for video games because there's so much math to calculate all the polygons of like your video game screen. We also use GPUs in ZK proofs because there's so much math to calculate these proofs that you've done a computation correctly. What we built was not a ZK rollup. Instead, we built a ZK database, a ZK PostgreSQL, a ZK MySQL, a ZK Snowflake, if you're familiar with these different database terms. We built a query engine for SQL that cryptographically or mathematically proves that the SQL was done correctly and the underlying tables were not tampered, which is really useful when a smart contract wants to ask a basic question about activity on their own chain, like, hey, has Scott's wallet staked this certain token for a certain amount of time? We can answer that query and prove it.
Sounds like proof of work is coming back, right?
I'm actually I'm kind of a proof of work fan. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I know the feeling. You also mentioned the proof of SQL. And as far as I know, this is a foundational zero knowledge technology for your platform. Can you explain what this means and how it enables sophisticated on chain AI agents and data driven smart contracts?
Yeah, on the AI side, like we're starting to see very sophisticated agents come on chain that transact on your behalf. AI assistants that help you trade, help you find meme coins to buy, for example. AI agents that use your crypto wallet to make purchases on the web for you on your behalf. And all of these agents need to traverse the chain, meaning like they need to make decisions about what to do on chain. And they need data from the chain to make those decisions. Like if I'm building an AI agent that's helping me trade crypto, I need to feed my AI agent with a lot of good, high quality, verified data that my agent can make good decisions from. And I think more and more as we, over the next, I don't know, 2, 3 years, as AI agents become more prevalent, and start to facilitate higher value transactions and move more and more money, high quality data, verified data is going to be required to feed into those agents to give them context about what's happening on chain. Similar with smart contracts. On the smart contract side, same thing. Like the next generation of DeFi and on chain apps will be very data driven. And that data needs to be secured by the chain. But you need like a query engine to access that data in that space and time.
And if I'm not mistaken, you've co-engineered with Microsoft some AI-driven prop to SQL system, right?
Yeah, at the UI level, you want to make it really easy for developers to write their SQL, generate it. So we spent a long time with Microsoft in 2023, and actually, in some sense, in 2024 as well, co-engineering a very sophisticated prompt to SQL, kind of AI Studio as an interface to the network to make it easier for developers to like access the data they need, write the queries, get the answers that they need really quickly.
Yeah, and I think this is a major problem to solve in this crypto space right now because UX UI is very very bad. And how do you see the AI shaping the future of decentralized data?
I see AI being a very important like product market fit area for blockchain, and another area of product market fit for blockchain, like really across three different like sub vectors or sub categories. Is like AI transacting on chain, like where blockchain is just like a better payment rails for AI to transact. Like I think it's going to be a bit challenging for AI agents to use credit cards and Stripe and like traditional Web 2 internet payment rails that rely on multi-day settlement and rely on like credit scores and social trust. I think it's much more easy for agents to programmatically transact through the internet on a ledger that settles very quickly. Distributed, decentralized ledger. It's just a very like good way to programmatically transact. Ironically, blockchain is really really hard for humans to traverse. This idea of like signing with a private key and building these messages is way complicated for most like normies, right? But it's a much better way for AI agents to talk to each other and send money and settle and transact. But I also think that like there's a couple interesting use cases like BitTensor and others that are building like decentralized AI networks where they're incentivizing a competition of machine learning engineers to run miners and build better models essentially, and like crowdsourcing that from the community using crypto as a like monetization for incentivizing cool models. That's another side of blockchain and crypto that I'm really excited about. So those are two areas. And then the third is just like the data side of it. So I think a lot of teams will start to incentivize communities to go collect data used for AI training. Like we see Grass, for example, giving you a browser plugin to go like farm, crawl the web and collect data for AI.
Yeah, So at this point of the conversation, we already have some general knowledge about space and time. How do you plan to make the end user understand what space and time is?
That's something I ask myself every day. I think that's the hardest part of building in the ZK space, especially is like consumers often know that ZK should be technically interesting, but they have no idea why or what that means. I think you have to give consumers like a very straightforward one-liner that explains. Yeah, you have to keep it incredibly simple. And to be honest, like as we get closer to our own test net in November, and then a main net following in Q1 next year, tentatively, I should say. We're still figuring that out. Like, I think that's something we think about as a team, like every day, right? Like you asked me at the beginning of this call, what is space and time? And I said, a blockchain for ZK proven data. That's still too complicated for, I think, the average retail participant that's like interested in understanding what this network does and how they can get involved. So how would you think about it?
I'm not sure. I mean, if I look at my friends that don't even understand crypto, for them it's hard to understand even how Ethereum works or how smart contracts work. So, I mean, I think this is a challenge not for space and time, this is a challenge for every participant in this ecosystem.
Yep, I
And we
completely
don't have that answer yet, but we have to enjoy this journey and see where we get. I mean, we have to get there at some point, right?
I completely agree. I think that was the thing I was most shocked about in 2020 and 2021 as I got deeper and deeper into blockchain, is that it was not very approachable. The terms and concepts and technologies were like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And I had a whole decade of being an executive at an enterprise database company, enterprise data warehousing company, building like 500 terabyte data warehouses for the Fortune 500.
And
like,
also, it's very cult driven. You know,
yeah,
those terms that nobody understands, the non-technical words nobody understands.
exactly. And I'm like, I come from a background of seeing every word in the data space, but none of these new words make any sense. Like, what's an Oracle network, and what is like fast consensus, and what is block times, and why does any of this matter? And then you get deeper and deeper, and you realize, wow, kind of this like roller coaster of learning where it's fascinating, and then you're like, wait, this seems stupid, and then it's wait, no, as you learn more, it becomes incredibly fascinating again. Yeah. So I think like right now we're appealing to a very technical audience. We're talking to a technical audience where our customers are very technical, and I think we have to transition to a simple message that people can begin to understand. And I think that's around like using data to bring about like a better world, or generate a better world, or using data to like monetize things on chain. Last thing I'll say is I think about Stripe. Stripe became like monetization for the internet, the Web 2 monetization rails to like monetize apps and accept payments and subscriptions and donations.
And you don't have to understand what is in the back end. You just know you have to put your card and pay, right? That's from the consumer point of view.
Exactly. And they could have a slogan that's like the payment rails of the internet. People get that, the payment system for the internet. And what crypto really is that, but like crypto is the permissionless payment system of the internet. We're providing data to it.
Exactly. So we've derailed a little bit because I had some curiosities and I wanted to ask immediately. But let's go a little from the beginning, because as we both know, no startup journey is without its bumps. So, can you share some of the toughest challenges you and your team have encountered when building space and time and how you worked through them?
Absolutely. I mean, getting the cold start problem, like building a team from scratch, is very challenging when you want to move quickly and you get funded, you want to build as fast as you can, you have a good vision for your product. It's very hard to onboard engineers rapidly, and so you have
How
this
big is the team right now?
about 35 people.
Oh, that's
Pretty
something.
sizable, mostly engineers. We have a very, very tiny marketing team of 2, and then a lot of engineering. Um, it's hard to like get started at the beginning when you don't have really like the team you need. Like we started with, I don't know, me plus 3 engineers in the early days, and we had to scale up to about 30 engineers over the
That's a
last.
lot to handle.
Yeah. So scaling up's hard. Hiring's hard. A lot of people during like the deepest parts of the bear market post FTX were like uncomfortable working in crypto. So it was like hard to like bring Web 2 people in.
Yeah, because
And
people need
everyone,
security and stability, right?
yeah. And like you want to be very rigorous in your hiring, but doing that in the early days when you need to build a team quickly is really hard. It's hard to be very picky. So you make some mistakes on hiring and you learn from those mistakes. It's hard to kind of like get a team built quickly that was like really, really, really high quality, but we fortunately were able to over time. And then like there are so many aspects of the technology that are challenging, like building. You probably know better than anybody, blockchain nodes are difficult to work with.
Exactly.
Building in the distributed system space is inherently hard. Distributed systems with consensus and networks that are resilient
A lot of coordination.
yeah, and there's a lot to do. I would say this is by far the most challenging space you could possibly build in, but the most rewarding.
Exactly. You can go from zero to hero in a month. It's it's unbelievable.
Maybe LLMs would be an even more challenging space to build in, and maybe even more rewarding. So I shouldn't say this is the most challenging and the most rewarding, but definitely top 2.
With privacy and security concerns that are going right now, how does Space and Time's approach differ from the traditional data solutions in securing both and security and efficiency?
So I'll say something kind of like interesting or controversial or maybe like unexpected. We assume that our query engine is meant to get hacked. It's supposed to get hacked. It will get hacked. That's the whole point of ZK proofs. So this is interesting technology. I even have to explain this to like my own team a lot, like remind them, hey, we're building this actually to ensure that when we do get hacked, when someone breaches or a bad actor gets a hold of private keys and begins to manipulate our data, that gets verified and caught on chain. That's the whole point of space and time. That's the whole point of all the IP we've created and the patents that we've patented and the mathematical proofs that we've created. Ensure that when any one of our query engines, any one of the nodes in our network that's holding data and serving data get tampered with, and private keys get lost or private keys get stolen and bad actors try to send bad data, it gets verified on chain, that node gets caught, and it gets slashed. How that
I
happens,
think
go ahead.
I think this is one of the best explanation that somebody has given me.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah, yeah, because now it's very easy to understand what you're trying to solve because nobody ever thinks that it's gonna be hacked or something. You know, everyone, oh, we're gonna be fine. But you actually you put the bad first, right? So it's gonna happen. We just have to be prepared, right? It's inevitable.
Yeah. What we do is we prove that node was hacked. So when any node in the network starts to serve bad data, we mathematically prove that the data from that node is not correct. It's been tampered. Something weird is going on with that node. And we know right away when we run our query, when data delivered by that node gets verified on Ethereum or on Polygon or zk-sync error or any EVM blockchain where we can verify the data that was provided by that node, that verification step mathematically checks that the node has been tampered and slashes that node. So that's everything we're building. That's it. That's space and time, is collecting data from different blockchains, serving that data to clients. And when any of the nodes serve tampered, manipulated, hacked, breached, changed data, we prove it.
Exactly. The best explanation. It's actually the best. Space and time supports use cases like DeFi, we talked earlier, gaming, and also enterprise applications. Could you share some examples of how your platform is being used in these areas and why trustless data is so important in these sectors?
Yeah, absolutely. The gaming sector is super fun. It's a lot of joining off-chain game data with on-chain activity like NFT rewards and mints, like helping gaming companies understand what in-game activity led to an on-chain mint or an on-chain purchase or an on-chain transaction. Like I upgraded my sword and that gave me a new NFT or something. It's joining off-chain game server data with on-chain activity from NFTs. I think that market is very like okay being centralized. It's not a very like pro decentralization market. Like gaming servers themselves are not decentralized, so game developers don't really care that much. They more see crypto as like a monetization rail. Back to that conversation we were having 5 minutes ago about crypto being the payment method, the monetization, and like the ownership of your digital content. It's like Stripe, if Stripe was also a database for you to hold your like weapons that you earned in game. you know on the DeFi side, I've talked a lot about that already, like providing smart contracts with the data they need to transact about you, your wallet, your history, your loans, giving them a very data rich set of information about who you are as a wallet and your financial background as a wallet. And then we're kind of starting to expand outwards into like RWAs, the banking sector, working with banks and understanding like how they want to onboard their data to the chain, and bonds and real world assets, which is an area that like I think will become massive in the next 3 years, as you see like every kind of forward thinking American bank beginning to start to put something on chain and test something on chain. So it's exciting.
You've told me earlier that you only have two marketing people on your team, but even though Space and Time has gained strong support within the crypto community, how important has this community been for your growth, and what are your plans for keeping them engaged as the platform evolves?
We are trying our best to onboard a lot of like community participation, not just through node operations, which will be launching in November, but also through like an AI studio where we're continuing to build and evolve that's actually for like non-technical users. We've been cooking up an AI studio that allows anybody to generate simple crypto native apps that are data driven. Like you could get on there, tell a chatbot what you want. It uses space and time's data to kind of like build a simple little web app that's crypto native that has all of our data embedded in it and allows you to monetize your app with crypto, the internet's permissionless payment system. Um, and the only reason we're building that is because we've been encouraged by Microsoft, like good friends of ours and backers of Space and Time that have been pushing us in that direction. Hey, do something generative in the crypto space. But B, we have all this data, and like I've always seen it be very fruitful for data warehousing companies to start to move up the stack into the application space and build apps with all that data. And what better time than right now to give consumers, give community participants a way to like generate simple crypto native experiences that use a lot of data. We've been incubating this for a while. I think we're going to launch this around the same time we mainnet. And so that'll be just yet another way that community can get involved if they're not technical, if they don't have the capabilities of running nodes.
You've mentioned a bunch of time the partnership with Microsoft. As far as I know, you also have a strong partnership with Chainlink. What do these collaborations bring to the table, and how do they help drive space and time forward?
Yeah, good question. Um, you said Chainlink, and who's the other one you mentioned?
Microsoft.
Yeah. Microsoft.
We've mentioned it in our discussion.
Yeah.
Microsoft, but I'm curious to learn more about these partnerships.
Yeah, they're very helpful on the BD side and like introducing us to a lot of like American financial institutions, and they're also helpful on the engineering side. We've been building a few different kind of features with them, like AI driven queries, and we're building like a Oracle for delivering LLM inference on chain with Microsoft. We're co-engineering a couple of different things with them. On the Chainlink side, we actually use Chainlink functions in the Chainlink network as a verification layer of our proofs. For developers that are already comfortable with Chainlink, already using Chainlink to access data from their smart contracts, those developers can use Chainlink to ask space and time questions. Chainlink becomes an oracle that delivers our data to smart contracts but verifies it first. Chainlink is like a verification ZK verification oracle for us, which sounds very, very technical. All that means is it's a decentralized network that can verify that we're not lying, and then relay our data to clients. They become like a conduit to deliver data to all of our clients and the smart contracts. They've been a huge supporter of the space and time network. Like Chainlink has been extremely helpful in getting space and time off the ground, helping us build community, helping educate the market about space and time.
I think that is very important
Yeah.
at this point where we are in crypto right now.
Yeah, and I think they have like they're a very long-standing player in the space. They have like a very dedicated community.
You've mentioned in our conversation that we can expect testnet in November, mainnet Q1. You've said about the EA agents earlier, but are there any other exciting developments on the horizon?
Yeah, so we're launching testnet, mainnet, this AI studio we've been building to allow non-technical users to build their own experiences in crypto. And then I think we're really, really excited to launch an indexing network where anybody with like lower quality hardware, like ideally a MacBook, can run an indexer node and like contribute something to the network, a node that collects data from different chains and submits it to the network. You can almost think about it as like a space and time light node, space and time mini. We're looking forward to launching that as well, just to give folks that are not professional node operators but have some kind of hardware, a MacBook, for example, a way to run a node as well. So we're really excited about that.
Where do you see the future of decentralized data storage and processing going into the next 5 to 10 years?
Good question. I think like you have on one hand decentralized data storage of like networks like Filecoin or Storj or Arweave that are focused on a high number of replications of any given data set, like replicate the data set 1,000 times or 100 times or 15 times, but enough that you have a lot of cryptographic confidence you're never going to lose that data, where they're about like censorship resistance of your data. Like I've got a scientific paper that needs to be published to the world and no government can take me down. I'm going to publish that on some like decentralized storage network. So we'll see a lot of like weights of LLMs be published through like torrent networks, decentralized storage networks that can like keep that out there in the public forever and never be censored. Like ironically, decentralized data will be a important like anti-state protection mechanism for like the weights of models in the future to prevent censorship. And then I think like we'll see the costs of hardware just continue to get driven down aggressively. Like commodity storage becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to the point where replicating something 20 times isn't that big of a deal cost-wise, which is really great. I like to remind everyone, space and time isn't really a decentralized storage network. We're a decentralized compute network running all this crazy math on GPUs to prove that we're not lying about our data. So like people get very confused because like, well, don't you store data? Like, or don't you just collect like blockchain data and store it? I'm like, yeah, but actually most of our work is proving mathematically, running crazy computations that prove we're not lying about the data we're storing. And I think that'll be broadly helpful outside of crypto. Like I think a lot of banks will use this technology, defense departments will use this technology, insurance companies will use it, and it's gonna be exciting.
There's a lot of buzz about when crypto will really hit mainstream. From your perspective, what's the tipping point for mass adoption?
It's a really good question. All your questions so far have been interesting. Tipping point for mass adoption has to be when people start using this more as crypto payment rails. Again, like I'm going to keep going back to this idea that like AI agents, yeah, it's the Stripe, it's the permissionless Stripe, and that goes for both AI agents as well as humans transacting on the internet. And right now, like when I go to purchase goods on the internet or pay a subscription or pay a one-time fee, I'm still connecting my credit card most of the time today. But we start to see it, right? We start to see USDC accepted here, USDT accepted here, Bitcoin ETH accepted here. We start to see connect your wallet buttons, and we start to see this permissionless system become more popular. And I think for mass adoption, I'm less concerned about more apps. We need more apps. Where are the apps? I'm not actually concerned about that. We need more Web 2 apps that are integrating crypto payments and allowing crypto to be the payment system for AI agents to transact.
Thank you for that, Scott. Mentorship plays a crucial role in shaping careers. I had a great mentor, and I'm curious who have been your key mentors throughout your journey and how they influenced the way you lead and innovate at Space and Time.
Yeah, I had my former boss, the CTO of Teradata, a publicly traded data warehousing company. At the time that I was working there, he was their CTO, one of the founders of the company, and like kind of a pioneer in the database space. A gentleman named Stephen Brobst, who's still an advisor to Space and Time and a close friend of mine. One of those like really extraordinary individuals with like 2 PhDs and a long tenured history of like patenting and pioneering things in the database space. And I spent a lot of time with him in the early days of Space and Time, just like conceptualizing how this decentralized database system would work and what that looks like. And he was super helpful. My co-founder, Nate Holiday, was actually my closest mentor throughout my whole career. He hired me to one of my first jobs out of school. Not my very first, but like I think it was my second job out of undergrad. He hired me and he was just like, hey, I want someone young, ambitious. I think I was like 20 years old at the time or something. And when I first met him, and then we worked together for about a decade, and he would always ensure that when opportunities presented, like he gave me the chance to kind of like grow my career, and we became very close. So along that journey, we thought, we should start a business together. Like we both, me on the tech side, him on the sales and go to market and business acumen side of things. We thought we'd be a good team. When we'd worked together for so long, we feel very fortunate to get to work with each other on such an interesting project.
This was the obvious next step.
Yeah, it was almost inevitable. It was just waiting for that right moment. And actually, 2021 Bull was that right moment.
As someone with vast experience like yourself, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs, developers looking to break into the blockchain space?
Yeah, I think the meta is constantly shifting. And if you get in this space looking to follow a trend, by the time you even start building or get deep down a building
You're
path,
gonna die.
That trend will have changed completely. Like I see 6-month lifespans of meta, of narratives, of trends. Often less, sometimes more. sometimes a year, sometimes 3 months. So my advice would always be like, I think I made this mistake a few times in Space and Time's journey of like spending a little bit of time and effort trying to build a feature or like a part of the network that follows some trend in the market, and like never do that. Build something that you know is going to be valuable, that you know
You
has
can build the next trend.
exactly. Either
Why follow someone when you can build it yourself, right?
exactly. And I think like most teams want to reinvent the wheel. Like there's no shame in using open source software as a foundation. There's so many good projects out there that have completely open sourced and have given their software away. And there's so many teams building high quality infrastructure. You don't have to build everything yourself. That was the lesson that I learned so many times, that like nowadays I try to religiously follow. It's like, don't go build anything from scratch. There's no reason to. There's always a good library to start. Yeah, and we built in like Space and Time mostly built from scratch over the last 3 years, and like there's benefits to that, but we could have probably saved a lot of time and effort by just using decent modular components. And I was afraid to in the early days for performance reasons. I wanted very, very high performance, so I wanted to build things from scratch. Again, like doing that helped because now we have high performance, but like you don't need that all the time. There's plenty of great modular components. So those would be my 2 pieces of advice.
What's the most unexpected lesson you've learned while pushing the boundaries of what's possible with space and time?
I think we could become the biggest network that's witnessing data and like cryptographically signing it, attesting that they witnessed data. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I could see in, for example, 2 years, Space and Time being like a 1,000 node network of validators that are coming together to witness data, say, hey, I saw that, you saw that, you saw that, you saw that. Sign it together as a group and make it available. That'll be extremely important in the age of generative AI, where we need a network that's trustworthy to witness when things were created, by whom, and where the data came from, and who created it. And it becomes like the ledger of the world's information. But because Space and Time can persist an infinite number of ledgers, unlike Ethereum, where you have one important ledger that's replicated so many times, Space and Time can have all these different ledgers that are witnessed by the network. We become, over time, the witness to the internet's data, and for anything that needs to be cryptographically attested, for ownership, for provenance, authorship, who created what, when, what was generated by whom. Was this by a human? Was it not? Sign it, prove it. We become this network that can witness all that activity and then store it wherever you want. The network itself will just be witnessing it at scale. And imagine you have thousands of nodes, or at least hundreds of nodes across the globe doing this.
Decentralized.
Yeah.
Not all in Kessner.
You become like this censorship-resistant, permissionless, truly global network of nodes that can witness things that need to be notarized.
That's wonderful. Looking back on your career, what has surprised you the most, and is there anything which you do differently if you could start over?
Oh man, so many things. In my career, yes, I would have got into crypto way sooner. Like I'm always so envious of the OGs that got into crypto in like 2016, 2017.
I heard about Bitcoin when it was $90, but I pursued another career because I wanted to do media and cinema, and I went full time in 2021. So believe me, brother, I understand you.
Exactly. And like, we all bought Bitcoin back in the day when it was like cheap, and we all sold it when we made a little, like we all saw a little bit of profit when we sold. Like no one held. Most of us weren't crazy enough to hold it from 90 to 60,000, right? And of course, same as you. Like I bought Bitcoin back in the day, back on like using it for like nefarious internet purchases or something back in the day, way back in the day when I was much younger, like in the college days. So definitely regret not getting into crypto earlier, like getting into smart contracts and into building in the crypto space much earlier. And then I also, I just regret like in the space and time build, like that, like knowing everything that I know now. Hindsight's 2020. Knowing how the market was about to evolve so much over the last 3 or 4 years, things were going to change so much. The narratives were going to change. The meta was going to change. The way people perceive crypto and use crypto and think about crypto was going to change so much. Like, if you have a crystal ball, I would have designed things a little differently from the beginning.
Yeah. So, thank you very much, Scott, for hopping in today and sharing your incredible story. I hope to see you soon, man. It's been a minute, and good luck with everything you do at Space and Time.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast.